Some of these goodies got me addicted badly, and my fish as well. But how to choose from the big variety on the market so it won't be ignored by your fish and left on the bottom to decompose? Hello friends, let's talk a little about the fish food. I want your fish to benefit from the best possible food, so let's see what to consider when selecting a type of food or another. This video will be a little longer, but the best out there, so buckle up. It has chapters for all the main food types. So no matter what kind of fish food you consider to get, you will know everything about it before buying. And I'll even teach you how to make your own fish food. First type, it's dry processed food, or how I usually like to call it, shelf food, because it's what we are most likely to pick from the shelf of a pet shop. It's easy to use and a complete food, or at least is designed to be a complete source of nutrients and vitamins for our fish. That makes it by far the most common type of food used in the hobby. You can see right here on the table that I have a huge variety of fish food. I'm a bit of a hoarder and about 90% of it is shelf food or dry prepared food, call it whatever you prefer. And the first in this category are the flakes. We usually crush them between our fingers and make small crumbs before we add them to our fish tank, or if you are lazy like me, you can just drop them in. There, our flakes will float for a period of time, but in my opinion, the longer they float the better. This way, especially the top and middle feeders will have enough time to grab them. Some of them are for daily use, others are microflakes, some of them will enhance the color. There is a huge variety of flakes. Apart from this, we need to mention that some food are dedicated for a particular fish. For instance, betta. The flakes are fish meal made out of krill and bloodworms. It even has small dried insects beside the flakes. Other fish needs vegetarian food like this one, based on algae or spirulina. Krill powder is very buoyant, so your krill-based food will float for longer time. Here, for instance, I just gave the little help to sink already. Don't worry, bottom feeders and the cleaning crew will take care of what's left. Unlike the flakes, next category of food, pellets, granulated food and even the powder will sink fast, so it's not appropriate for our top feeders. But some of them learn to swim down and pick up the bites from the ground, so don't be discouraged if some of the food will initially end up on the bottom of the tank. There are also floating pellets, but they are mostly for ponds, cichlids and goldfish. As you can see here, I have a huge selection of granulated food, from the smaller grain size to bigger ones. Most of it is sinking food, except maybe this. This one floats for a long period of time. There is an important thing to consider when selecting a granulated type of food. You need to pick a grain size matching to your fish size. It's not ideal for your fish to keep grabbing and then spitting up the food because it is too big for their mouth. Also not a good idea for a big fish to chase multiple tiny bits of food and lose a lot of energy in the process. Here I mostly have baby guppies, so I will use the smallest grain size food. You can see it's extremely small. Right about this amount it's enough. Bigger fish will eat it as well, but I prefer to use the smallest grain size as possible. If you first add the food to your lid, you won't give too much to your fish. How to feed our fish, what quantity, when, and how to store our food are important things as well, but I will make a second food video to address those. You better subscribe to my channel so you won't miss it. This one is also for small fish and babies, and it even has a measuring spoon, so it's more convenient. By the way, just because you see a micro rasbora here, doesn't mean Guppy won't have it. For your community tank, if you have bigger and smaller fish, one advice that I can give it to you is to either have different size food or to pick the one dedicated for the smaller ones. Bigger fish will find it and will eat it as well, but at least all the fish have a little bite. Or what I usually do, I put in a grinder many types of food and the grinder will just crumble into smaller pieces, so I can add it to my community tank. This way I can provide what I always want to have, a big variety. Right here in this corner, it's my selection for wafters and tablets. The last kind of shelf food dedicated for catfish, plecos and shrimp mostly. I really need to emphasize on buying the adequate amount of food. If you don't have many inhabitants, don't buy the bigger one even if it's more economical, because after you open it, the food will deteriorate in time. You can see there are a lot of shapes and size, and the ingredients are different depending on what kind of fish are they made for. We also have sticks in this category, but I only have shrimp sticks. Bigger fish tablets like this one can be applied on glass. The fish will come and eat, so you can admire them and inspect for disease. Maybe for a nicked scale or a broken fin, and for the health status in general. Shrimp wafters, sticks and even pellets should be added on a special plate. Not directly into the tank, so the tiny bits of food won't end up in your substrate. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper one to show you, only this do-it-yourself one. Frozen food for your aquarium fish? Let's talk about it. It is a special kind of natural food, a real nice treat for your fish, or at least an easy one to buy and ready to use right away. Great food for happy fish. Almost all the pet shops now sell some kind of frozen food. It comes in different forms depending where you buy it from, and especially this 5-in-1 is very convenient. Frozen food is a great natural alternative to dry one and comes in a big range. We have cyclops, white worms and bloodworms, Daphnia and brine shrimps, basically all kind of aquatic microfauna, even plankton. Just like in dry food, we have meat-based ones or vegetarian, like this green one. With so many types of frozen food, you really need to do a small research about your fish diet. Some of these frozen food types are just like they were gathered from the nature, while others are improved with vitamins, salmon oil and other additives, even some for better color. You can give it to your fish as it is, just drop it and let the cube float, sink or hold it with your tweezers. This is a practical way to move half of the cube to next aquarium if it's too much for a single tank, but you can also first defrost it. You just add the quantity you want to use in a plastic cup or whatever and add some water, or even better, you can add fish dedicated vitamins instead. Garlic, just like for us humans, is very good for our fish as well. It boosts their immune system and appetite. I add a clove of garlic, fine minced, to the water where our bloodworm are defrosting, then stir well and left it soak for a while. After that, with a pipette or a small syringe, we can add it in our tank. Bon appétit! But if we don't want that nasty water to end up in our fish tank, with the strainer we can get rid of it. We can even rinse it, but then we lose a part of those vitamins that we added to our fish food. If you forget to give all the frosted quantity to your fish and it looks suspicious, you should throw it away. You definitely don't want to make your fish sick with old food. It's not an expensive food, so it doesn't worth taking any risks. To get it even cheaper, I prefer to buy it in bulk size. Big chunk of brine shrimps. Let me show you how to give it to your fish. You can either just drop a big chunk like this directly in your fish tank. Wait a couple of seconds or more. Maybe you shake it a little so everyone can have a bite, and you put it back to your freezer. This is one way to feed them. You can use a tweezer and take small bites of brine shrimp and just feed it to your fish. Or a big chunk like this, you can break up just like so, make it in small portions, put them into a cup, maybe with some water, take some water from your fish tank, and then with a pipette or even by dropping small droplets of water full of food into your tank, you can give it to your fish. As other types of food, it's not perfect. Using frozen food also has some downsides and even risks, so use it wise, but for each problem there is a solution also. This is an alternative source of food, not the main one, so you should not give it to your fish more often than once or a couple of times a week. Because it clouds the water a little, I prefer to give my fish this kind of a treat in the morning before I do my weekly water change and the maintenance session. When we will talk about live food, you will see that I use quite similar strategy and a similar timing. Our brine shrimp, as you can see in this tank, unless you soak it for a while or wash it before adding to your tank, it can make your water a bit cloudy, but will be crystal clear in no time. I always turn off my filters when I feed my fish. Good, now that our fish are well fed, I can turn on the filter again. And the water will be crystal clear in no time. Live food for our fish and inhabitants in general is an even better alternative compared to frozen one, but it is much harder to acquire. There are some particular species, bigger ones mostly but not only, like Oscar cichlid or arowana, and they require to be fed live food. For Oscar is enough to provide some earthworms, but arowana mostly eats other fish. You can even do something that I don't recommend. You can buy fish to feed your own fish. I find this to be a cruel method and a very risky one. Fish that are kept as a food have poor health status in general, can introduce pathogen in your system, and you will end up losing more than you gain. The second option for living food is to harvest it from nature. These can also introduce some microorganisms in your tank and is season dependent. You can get things like mosquito larvae, daphnia and others. We can even gather worms and insect. Here beside the worms, you can see those tiny bugs called springtails. I mostly buy springtails from pet shops for my immersed moss and plant growing project.
They love eating mold and decaying matter.
So they are a must-have if you want to build a terrarium, even a paludarium or a vivarium.
See, you can notice here some mold and the affected plants are melting.
But if you have enough of them, springtails can make as a delicious food source for our fish. Many types of live food can be bought from pet shops, like this one that I have in my hand. Or maybe if you have axolotl, you can buy for them some mealworms or even superworms, this bigger variant of mealworms. Other livestock can also need live food. For reptilians and frog we can buy crickets, for instance. Depending on each kind of food we have, we can use tweezers to give it to our fish. It's not always easy, but I still consider that frozen food is the best possible food, but one that is not so easy to get your hands on. You can see here that I have some tubifex. There are some kind of worms. You can see they are moving. Or with a pipette, just like in frozen food, you don't risk to overfeed them. There are even special feeding containers that you can put on the glass with small holes, and you put your live food inside and your fish will go there and grab a bite from time to time. Or you can simply drop it in your tank. The movement will catch your fish focus and they will all come and have a feast. Just like the frozen food, this isn't a main source of food for your fish, just a nice treat to give once in a while, and you need to make sure not to give too much. Sometimes your own aquarium can provide live food for fish that you have elsewhere. For instance, clown loach and pufferfish are happy to eat some snails. These are the pest snails that we usually don't want in our tanks, because they multiply like crazy and are quite ugly. I personally really despise Phisa marmorata, the bladder snail. I just hate them. There are even other types of pest snails, like the Malaysian trumpet snails or ram's horn. But I find the last one quite cute and less invasive. So what I usually like to do, with a small diameter hose, I get out a bucket of them once every month, and this way I keep my snail population at bay. Also, giving less food to your fish will limit the snail population to a degree. Normally people do the other way around, they buy fish like pea puffers or even assassin snails to get rid of them. They don't harvest buckets of them like I do. The best way to get live food is to make a culture. For now I only have some duckweed that could be considered a culture. It multiplies like crazy. By simply scooping some out, you can give your cichlids or goldfish a nice snack. You can give it as it is, or you can even make a DIY food out of it. But the most common cultures are for Daphnia, for ostracods, also known as seed shrimp, and other small crustaceans. You can also multiply grindal worms, as you can see here. And by far the most popular live food are the brine shrimps. It takes about 24 to 48 hours to hatch, depending on the hatching method you are using and types of eggs. There are wet eggs and dry ones that have a lower hatching rate and needs a longer period, and is not a simple procedure. but they are useful for us in all the evolutive phases, especially the fresh hatched ones for our nano fish and for our fries. You can take some of them and with a pipette or a syringe you can give to your fish. I wanted to make the best possible food compilation video on YouTube and I'm quite pleased with the results. It's not easy to always have baby brine shrimps for your fish fries and for your nano fish, but it's by far the best food if you want a quick growth. I really advise you to make a hatchery at home if you are serious about fish keeping. I will probably make a video about that method as well, so if you still aren't a subscriber of my channel, you should change that. Just subscribe now and you won't miss out on my future work. Until I have enough time to make my own hatchery and a video about the method, take a look of my friend ones. Sorry for low video resolution. Or you can buy one instead of using a do-it-yourself one. This one supposedly is even easier to use. It doesn't even need aeration. You just add some water and Artemia eggs provided by Hobby Company. This is how brine shrimp egg looks like. Those are from GBL. Just take a scoop and add to the hatchery. Pour some water inside and wait for them to hatch. Then, like I show you with a pipette, you feed them to your fish. To be honest, I personally haven't used this method yet, but hopefully I will manage to find out some time to try it out and tell you everything about it. You've tried for your fish almost everything on the market? Or maybe your shrimps refuse to eat dedicated food, so you don't know what to do. It's the time for some homemade food. Let's see what can be used as a fish food for our beloved inhabitants. Some are easy and ready to use right away, while others need a little cooking from our part. So, put your cooking apron on and preheat the oven for some nice do-it-yourself fish food. Hi friends! Aren't you already tired of spending a fortune on fish food? Or maybe your guppy fish just got a lot of fries, they caught you off guard and you don't have proper food for them, for the babies. In this case you're in the right spot. I will put this aside and I will show you step by step how to make some homemade food with simple ingredients that everybody have at home. Just some veggies, some flour and a few eggs. Let's make together cheap fish food and maybe some lollies for our shrimps. Some veggies can be used right away, like this courgette. You just need to peel them off, or you can use a small zucchini, while others need to be boiled before added to our tank, like that carrot over there. Then sliced up. I prefer to peel them so I can be sure no chemicals will get into my fish tank. Our inhabitants are more sensitive than humans are, unfortunately, and smaller quantities of chemicals can lead to accidents. Inserting them to a skewer stick makes them easier to add and remove from our fish tank, but you can just use a single slice. I will move this huge quantity from an aquarium to the other ones. Shrimps and catfish, like bristlenose plecos especially, love veggies. If you first boil them, will soften up and will be accepted by your livestock. Unfortunately, my guppies are so greedy and they spook away most of the shrimp. But as you can see, on the bottom of the tank, another veggie is the main attraction. Everyone is eating up peas beans.
Peas need to be boiled first and also need to be peeled, just like so.
Then you can just drop some in your fish tank.
Goldfish love to eat this kind of food, and for their gallbladder, it's important to give them once in a while.
We can use them in other ways also.
You can press it and make it like a puree. And this is what we are going to give to our fish. It's a nice trick. Even smaller fish can eat this, and shrimps as well.
Don't worry, they will eat up eventually everything I gave them, but it's a high protein vegetarian meal and it makes a super fine dust in the water that can be eaten even by our smallest fish fries. Earlier, you probably noticed that I had an egg boiling. Here is how I use it. I will only need a single egg yolk to make the best possible food for my fish fries.
This is how much you get from a single egg. I only had a single egg here.
You can use this as it is, or to preserve it for a longer period of time, you can dry it out in the oven.
Now with this egg yolk, you can just give it as it is, or you can mix it with some regular fish food. You can see all those tiny particles in the water. No matter how small your fish fries are, they will still be able to at least take a few of that small powder.
I used this method when I was a kid for guppies breeding. By then there were no fancy foods to buy from the market. Egg yolk, just like peas beans, it releases a high protein, very nutritious, fine powder all over the tank. Next one is even more popular.
We have two kinds of spinach. This is fine minced spinach, and these are whole leaf. We can give to our fish as it is. We just open the bag, take some leaves and put them to boil.
Doesn't need a long boil, but I boiled them a little more to make leaves more tender. You can see that even guppies, fish that aren't vegetarian, love to take a bite on the spinach. In about 30 minutes, the leaf will be completely gone.
Next, I will show you what to do with the grinded one, with fine minced one. Let's get going. I will show you step by step multiple ways to make some fish food and shrimp food.
Instead of spinach, you can use nettles, but only if you live near a forest or at least you have access to an unpolluted area. Just boil those instead. Adding garlic to the mixture is a small improvement to help the fish health, but is not a mandatory one.
I will turn off the heat, let it cool a little.
At this point, we have two options. First option is to make a jelly.
One of these is enough for that quantity.
But let the spinach puree cool off first.
You take out the jelly from the fridge. It's solid. And just drop it to a cutting board. Cut it in tiny portions. Just grab a tiny cube like this and drop it in your fish tank.
Unfortunately, you need to keep this kind of food in cold place, and unless you have many fish tanks, you need to do tiny portions. My next method involved dough. It will be improved in time. I just learned it from other YouTuber and for now it's just experimental.
Now that we boil our spinach, let's get rid of the excess water. It should look just like so.
Really squeeze out all the water. The drier it gets, the better. Unfortunately, in this video, as a filling material, I had to use wheat flour, but it has minimal nutritive value, and if used in excess, can cause digestion problems. To improve the recipe, I've ordered some krill and other fish meal powder, hemoglobin powder, and other binder ingredients. Feel free to improve the method the best you can. When I will be happy with my new recipe, I will try to make an update video, but for now use this method with discretion.
I need to dry out this food even more, so I will add this egg yolk in the oven as well. It doesn't need to be a high temperature, just high ventilation.
After I've cooked in the oven, I tried them out but was not happy. The sticks were too light, so they were floating. The lollies looked okay and shrimps seems to enjoy them, but I dislike the fact I had to use so much wheat flour. Next time I will dry the spinach or nettles and just use egg white to glue it to the skewer sticks, like my friend did here. But I still hope that you can put some of my ideas to great use. I wish you, my friends, the best of luck with homemade foods.